So here's another excerpt from Rebound that is from Justin's point of view, our hero's point of view. Justin's heart went out to her. If they weren't in the middle of a restaurant, he'd scoop her up into his arms, hold her tight, and whisper reassurances in her ear. How could she think he'd be angry? His mind flashed back to the night of their heated argument, which had resulted in her storming out. Nausea churned up as he realized how much anxiety that argument must have caused her, since it had been their one and only fight. How could I have been so stupid? If only I had stopped myself and asked her to explain. Hindsight, always 20/20. I still care about you, he said, his tone gentle. He squeezed her hand. I know my actions over the past couple of years have suggested otherwise, but I want to know what happened between us. The truth? He nodded to encourage her. Fine. She released a breath and pinned him with a determined look. You demanded I move here and work for you, assuming I'd jump at the chance. You never considered I had a life outside of you, or that there were things I might want to do with my career apart from yours. He let go of her hand and sat back in his chair, blinking at her in confusion. That's how she remembered things? I never said that. Claire nibbled her lower lip in a nervous manner for a moment before replying. That's how it felt to me. Well, I'll be damned. It's not how I recall things at all. She gestured at him. Well, what is your version of events? He held his hands, palms up. I remember us talking all the time about the gym I wanted to build. You were excited. You agreed with all the classes I wanted to have there. You encouraged me. His voice trailed off, and he fiddled with the stem of his wine glass for a moment. Son of a bitch. I did assume you wanted to do it with me. Your reactions fueled me, and I figured we'd do it together. Anger bubbled up in his gut. Why didn't you ever tell me you had plans of your own? Why would you allow me to think you were on board with my plan? Her shoulders sagged. I didn't know how to tell you. I wanted to, but I guess I thought at some point you'd ask. By the time that night came around, you seemed convinced that I'd move here. I got angry that you assumed without having a conversation with me about it. He tunneled a hand through his hair and shook his head. Wow, I don't even know what to say. Claire ran a fingertip around the rim of her wine glass and sighed. I don't blame you. In hindsight, I can see how it might have appeared I led you on. That wasn't my intention. I didn't know how to tell you what I wanted to do for fear of you being disappointed in me. Well, tell me now. Tell me what you would have said if it hadn't all gone to shit. She stared down at the table and frowned for a moment, then stared him straight in the eye. At the time, I wanted to establish myself as a coach before I moved here to be with you, or even considered it. I wanted to do it on my terms, not because you expected me to. I thought we had our whole lives. Then we argued, and it was over. Her gaze fell to her lap. Justin took a moment to study her, allowing her statement to sink in. Would that have been so bad? Why hadn't he thought of it? Recalling how he'd talked non-stop about his plans, he knew he'd never asked her outright about moving here to be with him. The arrogance of a young fool in love. He cleared his throat. Well, what about now? Her gaze snapped up to his face. What do you mean? You've accomplished what you set out to do. What are your plans for the future? She narrowed her eyes at him. Why are you asking? Because I didn't when I should have. She smiled and shook her head. Justin, we both have lives now. I have my gym and you have yours. He wagged a finger at her. Technically, I own my gym. You work for a board of directors. Her eyes popped open in surprise and she crossed her arms over her chest. What does that mean? Your job isn't any more important than mine. He held up a hand to stop her. I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth. Then what are you saying? She shot back. The boat that was us has sailed. We have our own lives now. And, he countered, we always had our own lives, and maybe that's the point. We never talked about a life that involved us. We both had hopes and dreams we didn't share, and we are free to alter our course at any time. He watched as her mouth opened and closed, no words spilling forth. There had obviously been things he hadn't known at the time. What about now? Other than coaching, he didn't know what her personal life entailed. Unless you're seeing someone? Claire blinked at him in surprise, then shook her head. No.